Are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? That's my challenge to you, the listener, is, are you going to be a thermometer constantly changing with the circumstances and your results and always having your emotions on a roller coaster because of that? Or are you going to decide to know what your worth is and actually set the internal temperature and then change everything around it?
Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show with your hosts, Andrew Biggs and Mike Abramowitz. The Better Than Rich Show helps ambitious leaders who are on a mission to leave the world better than they found it, change their perspective on what's important, increase their income and impact, and systemize their life and business. If you've ever struggled with finding your purpose, have felt disconnected or distracted, or found yourself going through the motions, this show will remind you that what you do matters and will re-inspire you to chase your highest dreams. It's time for you to become better than rich.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Better Than Rich Show. I'm your host, Andrew Biggs, and I'm here with my co-host, Mike Abramowitz. Mike, how was your Thursday this morning so far?
Hey, I got the shirt on. It's my best day of my life, right?
That's right.
I have like 5 of these shirts. So
where'd you get them?
We got them from like different conferences and stuff for Vector. So I tried to order more and I couldn't even get them. I don't know.
Well, we'll have to get them into the Better Than Rich swag shop once that's up and running, if you will. But anyways, we have a quick episode here for you, our humble listener here today. We're going to be talking about the power of overcoming self-sabotage. And so often what I find in leadership in terms of coaching people and what their issues really are, Mike, is people getting in their own way, right? People are simply in their own way, probably 95 to 99% of the time. 1 to 5% of the time, it's some sort of skill or some sort of, just something they need to learn, right? But if it's most cases, I find that it's generally just somebody getting in their own way. And if you're listening to this, you can probably relate to that, right? You could probably have something come to your mind right now where you're currently getting in your own way. And so today we're going to explain that, dive in on that. And Mike, I would love for you to kick us off a little bit about self-sabotage in general and how it shows up and why, and some of the different forms that it can take.
Well, the funniest part is what you just said, you getting in your own way. So you said you, and so if I ever say the sentence, I keep getting in my own way. So I said, I and my, talking about myself in the same sentence. And that's the first observation that always shows up for me is like, I'll have if I'm shooting basketball or if I'm playing golf, it's like, all right, let's make this shot. What the hell? Who? It's just me versus me. What are we talking about? Let's do this. And, that's the first thing that shows up is just the language to be aware that sometimes we're talking about ourselves in third person. Sometimes we're saying I and me in the same sentence. So if that's the case, we want to have the awareness that it is a me versus me, that there is like as the inner work or the untethered soul or the power of now all discussed, that we have these roommates of our mind. And there's different voices in our mind and these different roommates that are sometimes filling our minds and filling our heads with different thoughts. And you don't have to believe every thought you have. So that's the first thing that immediately comes up for me. Andrew, I'm curious for you. I know I've talked about this on previous episodes on these labeling of these saboteurs that are in my mind and, giving them different names. But I don't know if you've got that crazy with me where you've named the different voices in your head. I could come back to that in a second, but what shows?
Yeah, I don't know that I've specifically named them. I think there's definitely a lot of different versions of myself, and I have to be really careful about which version is leading. And also, how do you show love, to these parts of yourself that maybe don't feel, have your highest good in mind? The concept, that we're really speaking on to start is called self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is basically how committed are you to actually bettering yourself, and how often will you actually act on behalf of yourself? How often do you want good things for yourself? How often do you believe you deserve good things? And so self-efficacy is a really important one. We've mentioned on the podcast in the past how, if you're given a prescription for yourself or if you're given a prescription for your pet, you're actually more likely to follow the instructions of giving the medicine to the pet than to yourself. You're more likely to miss a dosage here or there, forget to take your medicine if you're doing it for yourself. And so it's just a very strange sort of way that our minds work sometimes, is just how often we devalue ourselves and how often we don't act in our own best interest. Then we might ask, well, why is that? Well, there's a lot of different stories and there's a lot of different versions of ourselves that are showing up that sometimes like to run the show. One that's really common is not feeling good enough, right? And so, when you are showing up to something, maybe you're starting a podcast, or maybe you are in a leadership position in a company, you just got a promotion, or maybe, you just built a brand new, beautiful home, and you have your dream house, you have your dream wife, you have your dream kids, you have everything that you want. A little voice in your head's going to say, you don't deserve this. What are you thinking? Like, who are you to think that you can do this? Who are you to think you can do that? Who are you to deserve this wonderful life? And so that's a very common pattern that comes up. And if you don't know how to handle that, then of course you're going to kind of fall back to default. You're always going to lose what you gained in the first place until you grow into the person who could do that. I mean, one little thing that I'll share as something that I think is really powerful reminder that I bring in whenever I feel that way is, if I wasn't good enough, I wouldn't have the opportunity. I wouldn't be being given this platform. I wouldn't be given this opportunity in the first place if I wasn't good enough. So if I'm here, I must be good enough. And that's the way you can start to use the power of autosuggestion to kind of rework your unconscious mind to actually start to become someone who practices self-efficacy more often. Mike, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, and I like what you said, that these voices, we want to be gentle with them a little bit, and understand that they're there to help in some way, shape, or form. So by us knowing that they are here to help us learn more about us, or to protect us, or to take risks, or whatever it might be, we just want to be gentle with them. And I have my voices. I'll go through them quick, just because you may have heard it on previous episode, but Wimpy is like my mom's voice. Anytime I feel like I need to get protected, going into cold, or, going out in the rain, it's like, oh, but you don't want to get sick. Like, Wimpy's protecting me. Shithead is my voice of like the arrogant version of me, the one that tries to interrogate or project my own insecurity, or try to protect my ego. That's Shithead. The indulger is a new one that I've realized I have, which is the one who goes to a buffet and just, even if I'm not hungry, I just keep eating, or going to the gambling blackjack table and just trying to, try to win the money back. The indulger is just the one who doesn't know when to stop. So that's the indulger. And then there's the truth. The truth is my sage. And if you're thinking about these different versions of you, the ones that try to protect you, protect the ego, protect your whatever it might be, then there's that one voice of reason. That's the sage power. I call my sage power the truth. The truth is the observer of those other voices. So when you say the sentence like, oh, I can't stand when I do that. Well, it's like, I do that is the action. I can't stand it. Who's the I? The observer. When I observe me doing that, I don't like my behavior. So the observer of these other voices, the observer of your decisions, the observer of your actions, that's your highest sage power. That's your truth. And when you can get a stronger relationship with that sage power, with that truth, then what happens is, when Wimpy tries to start driving the bus, that's okay. Wimpy might be like, 12 years old, a 12-year-old driving the car. It's going to be dangerous, so maybe Wimpy's in a parking lot, no other cars around, and the 12-year-old's behind the wheel. And then if Wimpy was trying to go out into the freeway, the truth is going to come and be like, hey, Wimpy, let's pull over, get your butt in the back. I'm going to start driving the bus. So by having these relationships with these versions of ourselves, it allows us to have more awareness. It allows us to play to our strengths even more. So those are a couple things that show up for me.
Yeah, and I think if you're listening, what are your versions of that? What is your version of Wimpy and Shithead and the indulger and the truth? You need to have your versions of that, and I think it's a powerful thing to name it, right? I think it's a cool exercise that you're demonstrating there, because what you're doing is now you're separating it off, and so you have clarity when it pops back up. It's not just sort of a mix of emotions. You're actually naming who showed up. And so Mike is also holding up a book here for those
Called
of you
Positive
listening.
Intelligence. Yeah,
So,
it's called Positive Intelligence. Is the name of the
and the
book.
premise of the book is what?
Is exactly what I just talked about, is naming these. So the author has his names for them. The controller, hyperachiever, restless, stickler, pleaser, hypervigilant, avoider, victim, hyperrational. So he has his names. And then I just essentially took some of those names and said,
Yeah.
I came up with my own that I could relate to, but he describes them. It's a really good book. His name is Shirzad Shamin. I
Nice.
think if I said it correctly, but really
Fantastic.
intelligent way of approaching this concept.
Yeah, totally. And if we think about what is producing self-sabotage in the first place, again, I really think it's a function of not feeling worthy, and why should we feel worthy? Like, quite frankly, if we're being honest, if we got everything we deserved, isn't this the foundational religious truth? It's like, you're fucked, you're screwed, you're a messed up person. That's basically how every thing starts off. It's like you're born into original sin. Well, what does that mean? It means you're a flawed person. So of course, anybody who's self-conscious, at even one iota, is going to feel guilt, is going to feel shame, is going to feel down on yourself at times, because you know how weak you are. You know that you just started a diet on Tuesday and it's Thursday and you're eating a bag of chips today. Like, you have set intentions before and continually have failed. And it's like, Andrew, you're supposed to be the coach here. Why are you speaking this discouragement to me right now? Well, what I'm going to try to offer up is an alternative that's going to raise your worth. And the question I want to ask you is like, are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? Are you a thermometer or are you a thermostat? A thermometer is going to change based upon the weather outside, right? So a thermometer, you put it outside, and if it's really hot, obviously the thermometer is going to go up. If it's cold, it's going to go down. Well, I want you to actually be self-regulating, whereas a thermostat, what it does is it modifies the environment around it, right? Instead of it modifying on the basis of the environment. So being a thermostat says, I know my worth. I'm going to decide where I set my bar. I'm going to decide what my standards are. I'm going to decide who I'm becoming. And then I'm going to do everything I possibly can in my power to make those situations and circumstances come to life outside of me. I will condition a disciplined behavior if I want to be disciplined. I will be fit if I decide I'm going to be fit. I will hit that sales goal if I decide that's the sales goal I want to hit. I will manifest that person into my life that I want to manifest if that's what I decide that I really want. And so that's my challenge to you, the listener, is, are you going to be a thermometer constantly changing with the circumstances and your results and always having your emotions on a roller coaster because of that? Or are you going to decide to know what your worth is and actually set the internal temperature and then change everything around it?
And when you do that, you're going to have this voice in your head. I don't know which voice it is. You'll have to figure it out, saying, I told you so. And it's like, I told you so. I knew you could do it. So the I told you so might be, you have the discipline for the day where go to the gym. It's the voice in your head is like, I told you so. Like, I knew you could do this. That's like maybe your cheerleader. It's like, I told you so. I know you could do this. And then there's the version of you that sits on the couch and watches the boys and eats a bag of Doritos. And it's like, I told you so. I told you you're a lazy fat ass. I told you so. Right. So you have these voices of the sage and you have these voices of the saboteurs that are both going to say, I told you so. Matthew McConaughey talks about this, and a lot of people talk about it, the idea of feeding the two wolves. You have two different wolves that you have to feed, and you have the wolf of faith and the wolf of fear. And both of those wolves have to eat. It's just depending on which wolf you're going to feed more often. And the wolf that you're going to feed more often is going to be the stronger of the two wolves, the wolf of faith and the wolf of fear. So I would invite you to take on Andrew's challenge and double down on feeding the wolf of faith, the wolf that does have those daily disciplines, the wolf that does follow through, the wolf that does give gratitude when they don't feel like it, the wolf that does make their phone calls when they don't feel like it, and not feeling our way into acting, but acting our way into feeling.
Right. And I think it kind of goes back to the last episode. If you haven't listened to that one, please do, about how to manifest things. But you actually have to put these things into practice. I was sharing on our Healthy CEO Dad call once a month. Mike has organized this group call with our tribe. And so there's people from all over the country, entrepreneurs, we jump on. It's men only. And it's also, we're close. It's not just like random people, right? And so it's a place for us to open up and share. And so, to have a community. We've already met up at least once in person, and we're shooting to meet up again here later this year. And I shared with everybody, I said, hey, I know all these things, and I recognize that maybe the last 6-9 months, I haven't been on top of it as much. And just the instance of saying, okay, I'm actually going to do the morning routine I know that's good for me. I'm going to actually take the cold shower. I'm going to sit down and talk to myself like a crazy person in the mirror and tell myself how great I am. It's like, oh, wow, what do you know, right? Results. Like, what do you know? Things start clicking. It's like you're walking around right now. You're wondering why your life isn't the way you want it to be. You've listened to so many podcasts of the Better Than Rich show. You've listened to so many shows, episodes of Ed My Led and Impact Theory, and you follow all the thought leaders online, and you've read all the books, and you're like, why am I still exactly where I was before? Well, that's because you're not doing what everyone is telling you to do. And so, just having the discipline to start that, and then, like you said, act your way into feeling, Mike, is just an important concept that everybody needs to hear today. So if you're not where you want to be, just start doing what you're supposed to do. If you feel like you can't, again, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to support you to help those saboteurs get out of the way. But Mike, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, and that's the birthplace of Tiny Actions Daily. And I know we'll have an episode on that, but that's exactly it. These micro habits, like James Clear will talk about, you don't have to be fit, just become a version of you. Be a person who goes to the gym.
Yeah, what did he say? Go to the gym and just sit there and read a book and then walk home?
No, he
walk on the treadmill for 5 minutes?
Being a person that does yoga. How do you become a person who does yoga? First, you lay out the mat. And then you roll the mat back up and you put it away. And you do that and you discipline that habit of being a person who lays out the yoga mat. And then you bridge from I'm a person who lays out the yoga mat to I'm a person who does yoga by, all right, let me lay on the mat. Get up, put the mat away. And these tiny micro habits, these tiny micro decisions, these small, tiny wins is what creates momentum. And when you have that momentum, momentum going up and towards faith, and we also know the momentum going down towards fear. It's so much easier to slip down into fear, and it requires effort to go into faith. And that's why the intentionality does matter. So if you're listening, like Andrew said, and you are the knower versus the doer, micro habits, small, tiny, incremental decisions. Maybe it's not 50 messages. Maybe it's 2. Maybe it's not 50 phone calls. Maybe it's 2 or 3. Maybe it's not 5 gratitude notes. Maybe it's 1. Maybe it's not a 10-minute cold shower. Maybe it's 30 seconds at the end of a warm shower. It's like making those tiny, small micro decisions, and they'll eventually turn into something bigger, which is called a habit. And that habit will eventually become an identity, and that identity becomes a new version of you.
Yeah. I wonder, this has been a thought that's come up for me before. Definitely not my highest self here talking. But I think there's almost like this hedonistic element, of myself. And I think a lot of people do, especially in modern society, right? Where basically it's like, we really aren't starving. Nobody listening to this call is starving. We're really, really comfortable. We probably, even if you don't consider yourself wealthy, you're definitely like in the top 1% of world wealth, living a really cushy lifestyle. And there's like pleasures on demand, right? Like you can just drive down the street and you could go entertain yourself at Topgolf or Dave and Buster's, or you can go and, get drunk if you want. A lot of places, weed is recreationally, decriminalized. There's, internet porn streaming right onto your camera or your phone, rather, your device. It's like so many pleasures. I mean, even if you just go on social media, you can just be entertained for hours. You're constantly bombarded with this option to be entertained. And, I definitely have had like this part of me that would say, man, those habits, like good for you, proud, glad that you have those habits. And honestly, I'd rather laugh with the sinners than cry with the saints over here, man. It'd be way more fun to just party a little bit. And so I think that sometimes people hear, oh, all these positive habits, and you look at the person who bikes 10 miles every morning and then finishes it with a green juice, and you're like, damn, that person probably has a stick up their ass. They're probably no fun. But what I've found is quite the opposite, right? They're super rewarding. They're super fulfilled. They're happy. They're healthy. You reach an energy level that's beyond like a lot of what those quick fixes, the bag of Doritos, the marshmallow, sort of options are. They leave you feeling sick, right? Like that's the whole point. They feel good in the moment, but the next day they don't. But it's this sustained growth when you actually apply yourself in the right direction. You actually feel good about yourself. You actually like the person who you're looking back at in the mirror. There's no better feeling than that. So if you have a part of you that I can relate to that's like hedonistic and just wants to party, maybe consider that there's a better option than just having fun on the weekends. So, yeah.
It's the temptation versus the long-term satisfaction. The temptation of the one-night stand is, okay, that's cool, but the long-term satisfaction of building a family and having someone that you have a partner with life with is just different. It's throwing the one party like awesome rave party versus taking a 2-week vacation to Europe, backpacking and having like just the time of your life. It's like the small temptation versus the long-term satisfaction. So we do need to understand that those small hitting rewards are really great today, and you could build a cool life with these short hitting rewards, but that long-term beautiful satisfaction, like I love my life. I was telling someone yesterday, it's like, I love my life. My Mondays are fantastic. Like I literally do whatever I want on Mondays. Saturday and Sunday is family day and father son day to give my wife a day off. And then I work real hard Tuesday and Wednesday with my clients. Thursday is very much a learning day for me. And Friday is kind of like a wild card day. And it's like, that's pretty awesome to just be able to have a schedule, a routine. And then if I want to go travel, I go travel. I'm going to New Jersey to see family next week for my birthday, my nephew's graduations, like where we're planning the tribe trip. We go up to my mother-in-law's house, and we're able to do that because of those daily disciplines that I was willing to do for the last couple of years. So instead of settling into this short-term satisfaction, I invite you to start thinking about, what does a potential vision look like for your future, with your health, with your wealth, with your family, with your lifestyle, with your finances? What would be the dream life for you, and how can you potentially get there? And that's why I love talking about business systemization, because your business is a vehicle for your life. It's not your life. Too many people spend too much time in their business because they think that's their life. No, it's a vehicle for you to pursue the life that you want. And I think that if you're listening to this, you're positioned for that. And we want to help you get there if you need a little bit extra help.
Beautiful, beautiful. So if you are noticing these self-sabotaging tendencies showing up in your life, whether it's wimpy, or it's somebody who's hedonistic, or it's, telling yourself that it's okay, you can get started tomorrow, whatever it is that is showing up in the voice inside your head, we just invite you to self-regulate and find the truth and learn what is the best version of yourself. What's the highest version of yourself that's actually acting not only in your best interest of how you're going to feel today, but also tomorrow, next week, next year, and well into the future. Well, this has been a pleasure, Mike. Thanks to all of you, our listeners. We love you and appreciate you so much. We couldn't have the show without you. And until next week, remember to leave today better than you found it. We'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from us, you can follow us on Instagram at betterthan_rich and join our Facebook group at the Better Than Rich Show. Thanks again for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, leave today better than you found it.